Welcome back to another episode of Hammer Fist Sports. UFC 264 is a wrap. It's done. And that was one of the wildest nights, I think, in a long time. And if you expected anything less, you haven't really been watching. You haven't really been paying attention. Dustin Poirier defeats Conor McGregor via first round referee stoppage in the most bizarre thing I think I've seen since seeing Chris Weidman break his leg live right in front of me in Jacksonville, Florida. This was absolutely crazy because as shocking as seeing Conor McGregor get knocked out in the second fight of this trilogy, it was even more shocking to see him break his leg live and the way it happened. Let's get right into it. Let's get right into what all happened. But before we even get into UFC 264, I've got to talk a little bit about Conor McGregor and the attitude that he brought coming into this fight week. We saw it in the press conference. You know, initially, I called the second fight of the trilogy. I said Dustin Poirier was going to beat Conor McGregor. I just didn't think it was going to happen via knockout. But I honestly thought that Conor McGregor was going to come into this fight and we were going to get the old Conor McGregor and we were going to see him go in there and dominate Dustin Poirier the way he did in the first fight. Maybe he, didn't do all the right things in the second fight and his mind wasn't into it. You can make up a hundred excuses for Conor McGregor as to why the second fight didn't go well for him. But I thought we were going to get a different version of Conor. But if you remember my UFC 261 coverage where I sat here live and I said, if you would have asked me a week ago who I thought was going to win, I was going to say Conor McGregor. But after seeing Charles Oliveira win, I had this feeling. I had this feeling that Dustin Poirier was going to win and that I might be wrong with my Conor McGregor prediction. And I thought so, but still didn't want to give in to the fact, no, Conor McGregor is going to come back and be Conor McGregor. But as I watched the embedded videos on YouTube, the vlogs, as I watched the countdown, and especially watching the press conference, people thought they were seeing the old Conor McGregor, and you see the ESPN breaking news, the Mac is back, the old Conor McGregor's back. I didn't see the old Conor McGregor. I saw a guy who was trying to be a version of that old Conor McGregor, and that's just not him. That old Conor McGregor was hungry. He was real. This new Conor McGregor, he's not real. And I don't want to call the guy fake. I'm in no position to do that. But the way he was acting was as if he was trying to channel the old Conor McGregor, the old return of the Mac, and it just wasn't there. The trash talk wasn't tasteful trash talk. Not that he was ever really tasteful with this trash talking. We've seen it with Habib. We've seen it with other guys that he's fought. He's just a dirty talker. But that still looked very fabricated. It didn't look authentic. It felt like he was trying to convince himself and the world that he is a dangerous man. He kept saying, I'm dangerous. And if you saw the interview that he did with Ariel Helwani on BT Sports, Ariel Helwani brings up kids and what that means to Conor McGregor. And Conor said that he has 2 boys and 1 girl, and he would love to have another daughter. And Ariel, and that's really when Ariel brought up being a girl dad. And excuse me, I'm sipping my coffee here. Ariel talked about Conor being a girl dad, and Conor said he wanted another daughter. And then Conor said, well, why are you bringing this up? This is making me, I'm feeling dangerous. I don't want to talk about kids. I'm feeling dangerous. And it's just like, well, hold on a second. If you really feel like you're a dangerous person, why is it hard for you to soften up a little bit to talk about your kids, right? You can still be dangerous. But if it's now a mindset of, hey, don't talk about my kids because I want to continue feeling dangerous, that doesn't sound authentic. that sounds like somebody trying to convince themselves that they are who they're just not anymore. Um, Unfortunately, and I hate to say this, especially for a guy who's still relatively young in the MMA world. What, he's 32 years old. He's still pretty young, Conor McGregor. But an injury like this, you're looking at a year just to have a full recovery. I'm not a doctor. This is just me watching sports over the years. You need at least 8 to 12 months of just full healing and recovery. And then he probably needs a whole another year to get into fight shape, get into his fight camps, and be able to feel confident in that foot, confident enough to be able to throw it. Now, you look at guys like, for example, Anderson Silva, who's had the same injury as Conor McGregor, similar injury, and he was able to come back and he fought. But Anderson Silva was never the same fighter. Okay, I think we can all agree that he was never the same fighter after breaking his leg. But also the drive and motivation was different for both guys. Anderson Silva fought because he loved to fight, but also because he had to. He needed the money. Conor McGregor doesn't need to fight. He doesn't need to quickly heal up and get back in training camp. That's hard to do. That's hard to do, to come back from an injury like that and psychologically convince yourself that you're capable of getting up and putting yourself on a battlefield and to be able to do that successfully. It's hard. You see NFL players do it because those guys are young. You see torn ACLs, they come back. These guys are 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Things start slowing down. You're still young, 29. You start hitting that 30, these bones don't heal as quickly as they used to. Conor McGregor might need to really evaluate things and just come to a determination in his mind that he's done it all, he's seen it all, he's accomplished it all. There's nothing else left for Conor to do in the UFC. Now, if Conor McGregor says, no, I'm not going out like this, and makes a real effort to try to come back, I'm all for it. I think if he does make a real effort to come back, I think he can do it successfully. I don't think he would fail. I think the hardest part is working up the drive to want to go and do it. UFC 264 main card, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. Both fighters came out looking very, very confident in this fight, both walkouts. It was exciting to see Conor McGregor come out. It's exciting to see the fans cheer for him and the support that he had pre-fight. I don't think he necessarily retained a lot of that support post-fight, especially with his antics, his whininess, the way he handled the loss, the way he handled the breakage, things he said about Poirier's wife. I think Conor lost a lot of fans. I don't think it's good for his brand. But again, pre-fight, he comes out. I'm nervous. I am a nervous mess. I stood up the entire time of the fight. Did not sit down. Couldn't do it. Conor comes into the octagon, does his little strut. Fans go crazy. Hey, I went crazy too. I'm in the living room. The lights are off. TV's on, and I'm doing it too. Dustin Poirier comes out, looks great, and fight starts. Conor McGregor comes out aggressive, looking to take Dustin Poirier's head off. I expected that from Conor. I thought he came in with the right strategy, just put Dustin away early. But I think Conor McGregor ended up getting caught with a few punches that he didn't like. And I think even early on, I don't think anybody in the broadcast team, Joe Rogan, DC, those guys, I don't think anyone realized that Dustin Poirier threw a leg kick, a calf kick, early in round one that made Conor McGregor switch his stance. And when he switched his stance, that's when the flurry of punches came from Dustin Poirier and kind of caught him a little bit and forced Conor McGregor to kind of wrap his arms around Dustin Poirier and get him in a clinch. The biggest mistake that Conor McGregor made in this fight was going for that guillotine, and that seems to be the talk of the day for the most part. The talk of the day is obviously the broken leg, but why did Conor McGregor complain about Dustin Poirier, calling him names, calling him out about going for takedowns when he tried to go for a guillotine, which he didn't even go for a standing guillotine. He tried to go down and take him down with him in a guillotine. And against a guy like Dustin Poirier, who would love to spend his time on the ground with Conor McGregor, because that's where he is the most dangerous. Dustin Poirier is a dangerous guy with his hands. He's a strong guy. Like he can stand and bang, but he's even more dangerous on the ground, if you can believe that. Dustin Poirier has a hit list of guys. If you don't know who Dustin Poirier is, allow me to tell you, he's got 2 wins against Conor McGregor. He's got a win against Dan Hooker. He has 2 wins against Max Holloway, and Max Holloway is considered the greatest featherweight of all time. He's got a hit list. In that hit list, you've got Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, and Anthony Pettis. Wow. The only loss in between all those fighters that Dustin Poirier has is against Khabib Nurmagomedov, and so does everybody else that's fought Khabib Nurmagomedov. Dustin Poirier got on the ground. He was on the ground, got top position eventually. I thought Conor McGregor did a pretty decent job from bottom, throwing a lot of elbows on Poirier's head. I thought at one point he hurt him pretty bad enough. Bad, but not bad enough. And then you saw Dustin Poirier turn it around and start hailing those elbows right back at him. And Dustin Poirier mentions he eventually allowed Conor McGregor to get up and get off of, Dustin Poirier got off of Conor McGregor, and Dustin Poirier was complaining, saying basically he let Conor McGregor get up because Conor McGregor kept grabbing Poirier's glove and latching on and holding on, and that's illegal. You can't do that. That's leverage. And Poirier tried telling Herb Dean, hey, this guy's holding on my glove. Herb Dean wasn't doing anything. Dustin Poirier's like, all right, get up. Let's do it. We got, 7-10 seconds left in the first round. They get up, couple exchanges. Conor McGregor stepped back, snap, falls to the ground. And before anybody knew what happened, you could tell, you could look at Conor McGregor's face as he hit the ground. He had this look of shock, looked down at his ankle. He pointed at it. Dustin Poirier is like, oh, you're down on the ground, walks towards him, starts throwing punches. Herb Dean could have easily stopped the fight right then and there, but he let Conor McGregor off the hook and allowed him to finish the round with 4 seconds left. Finished the round, and you saw Conor McGregor in the worst moment of his life, of his career. No matter how high you think you are, no matter how much money you think you have, the Bentleys, the houses, the cars, nothing can top or can make you feel good to make up for the low that Conor McGregor was in that moment. On the ground, against the cage, broken foot, another loss, broken ego. And you got Khabib Nurmagomedov tweeting about it, John Jones tweeting about it. Everyone's looking at Conor McGregor and saying, karma's a bitch. Karma's a mirror, as Dustin Poirier says it. It's sad to see the fall of Conor McGregor after being a part of the rise of Conor McGregor. I was an MMA fan years ago when my dad was watching UFC back with Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz and those guys back when they were carrying UFC. and I started watching UFC, and I gained a love for it. GSP was my favorite fighter. I started doing some training myself. My mother passed away, so I kind of just fell out of love with the sport. I stopped training. I stopped watching. I'm sorry, my father passed away, not my mother. And I regained the love for it again as I saw the rise of Conor McGregor. He brought me back into that sport, into the sport that I once loved. And to see him fall as hard as he's falling, it just goes to show that this sport is a devastating sport. It's a hard sport, and doesn't matter how much money you have, eventually your time comes to an end. And we're seeing it with Masvidal too, as well. And Masvidal probably has about one more fight in him. If he loses another fight, I think we've pretty much can put a wrap to his career as well, unfortunately. UFC 264 live from Las Vegas, Nevada. The trilogy's over, but we might get a fourth one. The biggest winner in all of this is Dustin Poirier. He chose not to go for the title fight. He chose to take the big money price fight. Got Conor McGregor to take a third fight. All right. Obviously, Conor McGregor doesn't want to go out like that. He wants to redeem himself. So Dustin makes his money, wins this fight. And because of the way he wins this fight, he sets himself up for a fourth fight, another big money fight. But in the meantime, he's going to go and fight Charles Oliveira for this lightweight championship. I think that's probably going to happen around November, December. Wow. Dustin Poirier is doing it the right way. There was a quarterback in the NFL. I can't think of his name. Maybe you guys know. Let me know in the comment section. Leave a comment. Let me know who it is. But there's a quarterback who bounced around the league, the NFL, as a backup for so many years and made millions and millions of dollars as a backup and never stepped on the field and kind of just laughed himself to the bank and dipped out. And I think Dustin Poirier is doing the same thing. He's hitting a streak of really good decisions, and maybe because he's known as a good guy. He has a charity. I don't know the name of his charity. Maybe I should. He does well for his charity. He's a good guy. He's a family guy. And he has the best lineup right now for what he needs to do. I wish Dustin Poirier the best of luck. There are some other fights on here, UFC 264, that we want to talk about. Gilbert Burns versus Stephen Thompson, Wonderboy Thompson. I was really rooting for Wonderboy Thompson. I really thought that this was his opportunity to get a good win, to get a win against a known competitor inside the top 5, that will help elevate him into a championship fight against Kamaru Usman. In my opinion, if Stephen Thompson beats Gilbert Burns, it's him and Usman, despite what you think Colby Covington or Leon Edwards fit into that scenario. They both fought Kamaru Usman. Wonderboy has not. Gilbert Burns goes into this fight. He dominates. You got a stand-up guy like Stephen Thompson, who's a world karate champion. You can talk about all his karate credentials and accomplishments, against Gilbert Burns, who is decent, who's okay, stand up, but the guy likes to, he's a jiu-jitsu guy. He's a jiu-jitsu world champion. He likes to be on the ground. So you got two different guys. One guy who likes to stand and bang, one guy who likes to be on the ground and do jiu-jitsu and wrestle around. And Gilbert Burns just recently was just defeated the number 1 jiu-jitsu guy, master of the world just recently. And into this fight, round one, Gilbert Burns, he attempts he goes for a takedown early in the first round. Wonderboy stuffs it. Fight ends up on the ground, which is exactly where Gilbert Burns wants to be. But eventually Wonderboy gets up. They both finished around in a flurry of exchanges. You think that this fight is going to be, you think it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be fun to watch. Gilbert Burns in the first round, it seemed like his strategy was to try to get Wonderboy on the ground. He went for a couple takedown attempts. Some got stuffed. Some actually got him, the takedown. Second round, it seems like Gilbert Burns comes out with a different strategy. Now he's looking to be more aggressive on the stand-up, and now he wants to play Wonderboy's game. And that's not a good idea. And what Gilbert Burns found himself doing was he would try to press Wonderboy, and Wonderboy was just too quick on his feet, and there'd be a lot of swing and misses coming from Gilbert Burns. And when you swing and miss, you're going to tire yourself out. And he found himself getting tired, swinging and missing. And later on in the second round, about 1:06 left in the second round, Gilbert Burns goes for a takedown. He goes for his first takedown attempt of the second round, changes strategy, goes to a standing position, goes for his first takedown, 1:06 left in the first round, gets stuffed, and about 30 seconds or so left. He finally gets a takedown. Eventually, they both exchange some punches while on the ground. Third round, Burns gets hurt with like a spinning back heel kick. Fantastic, well executed by Wonderboy. While in panic mode, Burns goes for a takedown and ends up on top for pretty much remaining of the round. Burns ends up landing 3 to 5 shots in the back of the head of Wonderboy that goes unnoticed. I think those were enough shots to stop the fight right then and there. And the referee, whoever it was, I can't remember, needed to make an executive decision, needed to make a real decision and deduct points, disqualify. That was a lot of shots in the back of the head. Not that maybe I'm being biased, but I felt like it was enough for sure. Got some good coffee here. I would tell you who they are, but they're not paying me to do that. I need that sponsorship first. I'm not doing no commercials today for any water. Man, that was exciting. Gilbert Burns ends up winning this fight, 29-28 unanimous decision. Not sure what's next for Gilbert Burns. I don't really know if he's in the welterweight title picture. But I think that Colby Covington and Leon Edwards should go at it, and winner gets Usman. But from what I'm sensing from Dana White, it looks like Covington's up next against Usman. Meanwhile, you might have Leon Edwards versus Jorge Masvidal, which I'm all for it. Bring it. That's going to be exciting. I really don't care to see Masvidal versus Nate Diaz again, but that is a conversation for a different podcast. Let's see what other fights tied to a Vasa Greg Hardy in the most poetic justice thing I've ever seen. If you don't know much about Greg Hardy, you should look him up. Former NFL player, was bounced around from team to team, eventually left the NFL. Nobody wanted him anymore. He was accused, and his girlfriend, he was accused of beating up on his girlfriend, throwing her around, throwing her on a couch that had guns and machine guns and revolvers and all kinds of heavy machinery, and threatening her. There's pictures of her online with bruises on her face and on her arms. I mean, this guy is a true piece of crap. He's a true piece of work. And what happened to him last night, Tai Vasa went in there and just absolutely dismantled him. Tai Vasa basically started off the first round with leg kicks and that looks like it agitated Greg Hardy. He did not like that. Eventually, Tai gets rocked by Hardy. Hardy tries to go in there, sees Tai Tuivasa on spaghetti legs, looks to go finish, gets clipped, and drops on the ground. Tai Tuivasa goes in there, gives him a couple more. Fight's over. Tai Tuivasa celebrating, beer in a shoe, starts chugging them. I'm not a fan of that. You won't catch me chugging beer out of a shoe. That's absolutely disgusting. But that's his thing, and I think that's going to make him very popular, and I think he may have started something really, really cool. And you think of I immediately think of Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's on the top rope. Somebody throws him a beer, 2 beers, clanking them together. Whew, he starts chugging beer, and that became a thing. And I think Tai Tuivasa really has something for himself. And big congratulations to him. I thought in my predictions for these fights, I did not think there was a chance in heck that Greg Hardy would beat Tai Tuivasa. Tai Tuivasa is way too skilled. He has 11-3 record. 10 of his wins, or 10 of those 11 wins came from knockout. So this guy is a knockout artist. He started his pro MMA career at 9-0, and then he lost 3 straight. But since then, went on a 2-0 winning streak. Now he's at 3-0. The guy is fantastic. I love this Tai Tuivasa guy. Best of luck to him in his future. I think he's an absolute $75,000 performance of the night or knockout of the night candidate. And I love Twitter. If you don't know that, now you know. I'm a big Twitter holic, and a lot of my MMA information and knowledge sharing happens in Twitter, and I follow Tai Tuivasa. So Tai Tuivasa, if you're watching this podcast, I now follow you. What a great fight. What a great knockout. Women's bantamweight division, Irene Aldana versus Yana Kutsukaya. Wow. Irene Aldana came in as a 12-6 record. She fought against Holly Holm, and she lost via unanimous decision. Aldana also has losses against Raquel Pennington, Caitlin Chukagian, and Dana White didn't actually know this until somebody told him in a press conference yesterday, which I'm kind of surprised. But Irene Aldana came in overweight. She was overweight during the weigh-ins by enough for her to lose what I think it's 30% of her winnings, or 30% of her purse will go to Kutsukaya. So she said before the fight that she had a lot to prove and a lot to win, to show that, hey, I know I screwed up. I came in overweight, but I can prove to everybody that I'm better than that. That's never happened to me before. I have to go in there and get a finish. And I thought Kutsukaya was going to win this fight initially, but in the first round, Kutsukaya came out looking aggressive, which is great, but it looked more frantic, to the point where she ended up getting dropped by a check left hook. And Kutsukaya eats about 7 to 9 more shots to the head before the referee eventually steps in. And that was all she wrote. First round TKO for Aldana, which awesome. I would love to see her continue moving up that ladder. It is a very difficult division, women's bantamweight division. Well, they're all pretty difficult in the sense that if you have world championship aspirations or hopes, you better be super elite, because the ones holding the belt are mean, ruthless fighters. You look at Amanda Nunes as the champion, and you've got these other badasses that are just Valentina Shevchenko, Rose Namajunas. I mean, these girls are incredible. And if you have championship aspirations in the women's division, you better come in super elite. Looking forward to the next UFC event that has Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena. I think Juliana Pena, if she can figure out a way to get Amanda Nunes on the ground, she might get Amanda Nunes some difficulty. But we'll talk about that on another podcast. Don't try to suck me into talking about anything outside of UFC 264. I know what you're doing. Oh man, the first fight of this card, Sean O'Malley versus Chris Moutinho. Chris Moutinho, the green-haired guy, has won himself a lot of new fans. Got himself $75,000 from Dana White for performance of the night. Sean O'Malley came in as the favorite, 13-1 record. His only loss against Chito Vera. Chito Vera, I became a huge fan of him, not after the O'Malley fight, but actually during his recent fight. I like his fight style. I think he's pretty cool, but this isn't about Chito Rivera. This is about Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley, of his 13 wins, 9 are via knockout. Chris Moutinho makes his UFC debut on an 11-day notice. Chris Moutinho was sitting at his home with his grandmother, trying to figure out how to pay his bills, trying to figure out what the next step is in his life. And he gets a phone call from the UFC. UFC says, you have 11 days. Do you want to come in and fight Sean O'Malley? He says, yes, I do. And he comes in there and gives us an incredibly entertaining fight. Round 1, Sean O'Malley dominates while he's going backwards. This guy, what Chris Moutinho did well against anybody else who's faced Sean O'Malley is that he constantly applied the pressure towards Sean O'Malley. And Sean O'Malley is a knockout guy. He wants to be able to set his legs, use his hips to turn, and give you a knockout. But with the pressure that Moutinho was applying, O'Malley wasn't able to put the force and wasn't able to set his legs behind his punches. But I tell you what, I felt like Sean O'Malley gave this kid everything. Just absolutely hammered this kid's face in. Reconstruction facial surgery might be needed. Blood is everywhere. And I don't feel like Moutinho landed any decent strikes against Sean O'Malley, none that actually hurt him, but he did take a beating. This kid has a ton of heart, and I can't wait to see what he does in his next fight. I hope the UFC takes care of him. They already did with $75,000, but I hope they take care of him and actually give him a new or another contract, maybe give him a little bit more money, get him into some other fights. I'd love to see what else this kid can do. Sean O'Malley, it's time for Sean O'Malley to get a worthy competitor. Let's get somebody inside the top 10. I don't know why the UFC is so afraid of giving Sean O'Malley a real contender. Is it because of what happened, what Chito Vera did to Sean O'Malley? That was completely, embarrassing. Had him leaving on a stretcher. Sean O'Malley still doesn't believe in that one loss against Chito Vera. He still considers it a 0. But, he can say that all he wants. It's not going to change the outcome of that fight. It's time for Sean O'Malley to get some worthy competitors. I'm not too sold on him. I like him. I follow him on Twitter. I watch his interviews. I think he's entertaining. I think the different colored hair, I think all that's great. It brings in a lot of money, but we need to see more. We're going to need to see a lot more from Sean O'Malley. Another fight worth mentioning: Nico Price versus Michel Pereira. That was a fun fight to watch. I had Nico Price winning this fight. I didn't think Michel Pereira was even going to last the 3 minutes, but round 1, I know Dana White said there wasn't any issues with purchasing pay-per-views, but I had some broadcasting issues. Early in the first round, the broadcast cuts out for me. It goes completely dark. It comes back alive, and it's Pereira with he had an eye poke, and I'm like, I don't know what happened here. But Michel Pereira looked pretty calm and calculated and relaxed in the first round. Usually we're so used to seeing a lot of his antics early in the fights, and that usually gets him pretty gassed by the time he gets to round 2 and 3, and that's where most of his losses are. But he looked really good, looked very calculated. He did have a Superman punch off the cage that did not connect, but it looked good, didn't exhaust too much energy. He did a really fantastic job of just controlling himself. It was hard to pick a winner for this round. But I think, in my opinion, before knowing the result, I had Pereira winning this round 1-0 just because he was a little bit more calculated, landing more shots. Round 2 was fun and entertaining, with Pereira having the top control for a good part of the second round, and then both fighters end up having an exchange in about the last 90 seconds of the round, which was also pretty entertaining. I gave that round to Pereira, but you could easily give that round to Nico Price, and you can easily either 2-0, 1-1. Again, it didn't really change the outcome of the fight, but that's the scoring system that I had. Third round, the fighters came out swinging. There was a low blow on Price. They ended up moving on from that. We saw some big exchanges throughout the round. Very entertaining. Pereira gets gassed in the third round, as you kind of expect with Michel Pereira. He's second and third round. He can't survive too much. He attempted several takedowns at the end of the third. Pereira does. And for me, I thought that Nico Price could have easily won this one, but my scoring system was off. Pereira ends up winning by decision. I thought both of these guys deserved a $75,000. Very fun, very, very great fight to watch. Not sure what's going to happen next with Michel Pereira. This is now 5 losses for him. He has, 2 of them against Vicente Luque. He's got a loss against Jeff Neal. Now a loss against Michel Pereira. It's going to be very interesting to see where both these guys are trending next. I don't think Michel Pereira is necessarily championship material. I think he's just an entertaining fighter to watch, a fan favorite for sure. Let's see. Honorable mentions. Early prelims, the first fight, Zhalgas Zhumalov. I think that's how you say his name. Zhumalov. He defeats Jerome Riviera via standing guillotine. Wow. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I've seen some guillotines in my time, but I don't think I've seen a standing guillotine before. That was absolutely incredible. That's 4 straight losses for Riviera. And of those 4 straight losses, 3 of those 4 were finishes. I don't know how much longer this kid is going to be around the UFC. Early prelim fight number 3, Jennifer Maia defeats Jessica Ai by unanimous decision. What an absolute shocker. Robbery. I thought Jessica Ai did enough to win that fight. She was the aggressor. Now, Jennifer Maia did land a lot of damaging shots to Jessica Ai. No doubt about that. She landed a lot of devastating shots, but I don't think she did enough to win 3 rounds. And when they announced 30-27 unanimous decision for Jennifer Maia, my mind was blown. It made me believe that I don't know what I'm talking about, apparently. I don't know how to judge a fight. And I felt a little insecure about myself. So I went to Twitter for justification. I needed Twitter for validation. And people on Twitter also agreed with me that there was some robbery, some thievery going on there. And Jessica Ai did not deserve to lose that fight, especially by unanimous decision, especially 30-27. Wow. Prelims fight 1. Let me say this kid's name right. Dricus Duplicity. There it is. Duplicity defeats Trevin Giles via second round KO. It was a big knockout for Duplicity in the second round, basically making his mark in the middleweight division. Now he has a 16-2 record. I'd never seen this guy before, never heard of him. Apparently this was his second or third fight in the UFC. He's really making a name for himself. I thought he did a fantastic job winning this fight. I think it's time for him to get a worthy opponent. I say put this guy, Duplicity, and Darren Till together. How about that? Darren Till is ranked number 7. I think this would be a great fight for Darren Till to kind of, to kind of lay his claim. Like, hey, I'm a legitimate contender in the middleweight division. This guy's just not going to come in here and, try to get a couple knockouts and take my spot. So I think it'd be a great fight for Darren Till, but I also think it'd be a great fight for Duplicity. If he can come in there and put Darren Till to sleep, that catapults him into a worthy contender into the middleweight division. And the way Israel Adesanya is running through that middleweight division, I'm all for somebody with a 16-2 record, new, coming in there with some knockouts. Give Israel Adesanya some contendership. I'm all for it. Prelims, the first fight, Topuria defeats Ryan Hall via hammer fist in the first round. This is why I love the hammer fist. This is why I love the hammer fist podcast. And this is why we named it. We, as in me, myself, and my thoughts. Ryan Hall's fight style, it was very wild and unorthodox. Ryan Hall's in-octagon fight style reminded me of Tony Ferguson's training videos that we see on Twitter. Absolutely bizarre. The dude kept tumbling and rolling around trying to tangle himself with Topuria, and it wasn't working. Eventually got caught with the hammer fist, went night-night, went to sleep. Topuria is now 11-0 and is ready for a ranked contender. It's time to take this guy seriously. I'd love to see Topuria, and you want to give him worthy contender? Shane Burgos. Shane Burgos is coming off back-to-back losses. What a great matchup for Shane Burgos and for him to redeem himself. Meanwhile, Topuria be a great win for him to beat a big name like Shane Burgos, who's only 13-3, coming off back-to-back losses. That's right there. That right there would be a great fight to watch. I'm all for it. One final thought. One final thing that I want to talk about here in this last minute or two. Excellent UFC 264 from Vegas. Had a great time, great card from top to bottom. For the love of God and for the love of everything mighty in this world, Twitterverse, social media, MMA community, just give me 30 seconds of your time. Stop whining and complaining about Stephen A. Smith, about Max Kellerman. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Those people work hard to entertain you every single day. If you don't feel like you're entertained and you feel like you're annoyed and you don't want to look at Stephen A. in the face or look at Max Kellerman and you don't want their opinions, you don't have to watch. I'm on Twitter last night looking for some UFC 264 commentary, some exchanging of information. You know how when people adults have conversations, but you see Stephen A. Smith trending. Number one thing last night. Why? Because people are complaining and whining. It just goes to show, especially when you watch a Conor McGregor card, that there's going to be a ton of casuals. And when casuals watch MMA, they love to whine and complain. That is my thought. That is my mind, from mine to yours to mine. Thank you so much for joining. We've got a lot lined up with Hammer Fist Sports. Here in a couple of weeks, I've got some guests coming to join me. We're going to be talking about fantasy football. It's going to be a great year. I'm so excited. We're less than, 2 months away from NFL kickoff. Join me as we talk about fantasy football 2021, and I'll have some fun guests. Thanks again, guys. Hammer Fist Sports. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. You know what to do. See you next time.